Every day, around 150,000 people leave this world. That's more than 6,000 people every hour, each one with a story, a life lived, memories made, and lessons left behind. For most of us, those numbers are just that, statistics. But today, at 6:47 a.m., one of those 150,000 became personal. He was a 71-year-old man, not a celebrity, not someone history books will write about, but someone who mattered deeply in his quiet corner of the world. He was someone's father, a husband of 45 years, a neighbor who always stopped to ask how you were doing. His life didn't make headlines, and yet this morning, as I heard the news of his passing, I couldn't stop thinking about him. You see, I knew this man. Not well, but enough to notice the way he lived. Enough to notice the things he didn't say out loud, but demonstrated in every small deliberate act. His life was filled with patterns that seemed insignificant at the time. A ritualistic cup of coffee shared with his wife every morning, a weekly visit to his grandkids no matter the weather, and his tendency to quietly step in and help when no one else was watching. And now, he's gone. But as I sat there this morning, staring out of my kitchen window, I couldn't shake the thought. What do we miss when we only focus on the big moments of life? What truths do we overlook in the ordinary rhythms of a life well lived? Because in the wake of his passing, I realized something profound. This wasn't just the end of a life, it was the beginning of a lesson. Several lessons, in fact, that I think we can all learn from. Lessons that remind us to live with intention, to focus on what really matters. Today, I want to share 5 of those lessons with you, drawn from the life of a man whose story might not seem extraordinary at first glance, but holds the kind of wisdom we all need. Hi, I'm Peter, also known as the Wisdom Professor, and welcome to Wisdom in Abundance, your daily dose of inspiration, practical life tips, and timeless wisdom to help you live a more fulfilling life. Whether you're 25 or 75, this channel is about one thing: making every moment count, no matter what stage of life you're in. Today's story hits close to home for me, and I think it might for you too. It's not just about the passing of a 71-year-old man, it's about the life he lived, the mistakes he made, and the things he did right. You see, life is full of lessons, and often the hardest ones come not from books or lectures, but from reflecting on someone else's journey. This video isn't just about honoring his life. It's about understanding how we can avoid the regrets he might have had, and, more importantly, how we can embrace and amplify the things he did so well. As I sat reflecting on his life this morning, a quote by Maya Angelou came to mind. People will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. This man embodied that. He wasn't perfect, none of us are, but his actions, both the intentional and the unintentional, left a legacy worth learning from. In this video, we'll uncover 5 life-changing lessons inspired by his story. These aren't just lessons for seniors. They're for anyone who wants to live a more meaningful, intentional life. Stick with me, because what I'm about to share might just change the way you approach your own life, starting today. Cherish time with loved ones. The first lesson we can take from his life, and perhaps the most important, is this: cherish time with your loved ones. It sounds simple, doesn't it? Almost cliché, but when you really stop and think about it, how often do we let the busyness of life get in the way of the people who matter most? This man wasn't perfect. No one is. I remember his son telling me about a period in their relationship when they barely spoke. 5 years to be exact. 5 years of silence because of a disagreement over something trivial, something they both eventually forgot about. But by the time they reconciled, his son admitted, "I can never get those years back." And neither could he. Yet, despite that rough patch, this man made an effort to mend those relationships in his later years. And when he did, he went all in. Every Sunday afternoon, rain or shine, he'd pack up his old car and head over to his son's house. He'd sit on the porch with his grandkids, listening to their stories, laughing at their jokes, even if he didn't fully understand them. It became a tradition, one the family looked forward to every single week. But here's the part that stuck with me. He didn't just show up for the big moments, birthdays, holidays, graduations. He showed up for the little ones too. The ordinary Sunday afternoons, the quick phone calls to say, "I was just thinking about you." Those were the moments that mattered most to his family. And when he passed, those were the moments they talked about. Not the big speeches, not the grand gestures, the small, consistent acts of love. So what can we learn from this? Cherishing time with your loved ones isn't just about being physically present. It's about being emotionally present. It's about listening when they speak, showing up when they need you, and even sometimes when they think they don't. It's about forgiving quickly. Because, as this man's story reminds us, time is far too short to waste on grudges. But here's a truth that's harder to hear. This man also had regrets. He often said he wished he'd spent less time working late nights when his kids were young. I was trying to provide for them, he'd say, but I missed their childhoods. That regret stayed with him, and it's something we can learn from too. Because while work, responsibilities, and obligations will always demand our attention, those moments with family, they're fleeting. And once they're gone, they don't come back. If you're watching this and you're thinking about the phone call you've been meaning to make or the family dinner you keep postponing, this is your sign to stop waiting. Reach out. Schedule that visit. Pick up the phone. Life isn't measured in years. It's measured in moments. And the ones spent with the people you love are the ones that matter the most. Take it from him. He didn't live perfectly, but in the end, he showed us that even small efforts to connect can leave a legacy of love that outlives us all. The second lesson we can learn from his life is one that hits home for so many of us. Health is wealth. And yet, it's one of the hardest lessons to truly live by until life forces us to face it. This man, like many others, didn't prioritize his health for most of his life. He had habits, some good, some bad, but his biggest struggle was smoking. It started when he was just 17, back when cigarettes were seen as cool, even sophisticated. Over time, it became more than just a habit. It was part of his daily life, like clockwork. He'd light up first thing in the morning with his coffee, during breaks at work, and while sitting on his porch in the evenings. His wife, on the other hand, was always health conscious. She encouraged him to quit smoking for years. She would cook healthy meals filled with vegetables and whole grains, and she loved her long walks in the park, often begging him to join her. Just 20 minutes, she'd say, with that mix of love and frustration that only comes from someone who truly cares. But he'd brush her off, saying, "I'm fine. My body can handle it." For years, he ignored the signs: shortness of breath, a persistent cough, and the fatigue that crept in slowly but surely. It wasn't until his late 60s that the wake-up call came: lung cancer. And by then, the damage had been done. I remember his wife saying through tears he only started caring about his health when the clock was running out. He quit smoking, ate healthier, and even joined her on those walks she'd been asking him to take for decades. But it was too late to undo the years of neglect. Now, let's pause for a moment. This isn't just about his smoking or his personal choices. It's about the bigger picture, the health challenges so many seniors face as they age. Things like heart disease, arthritis, diabetes, and declining mobility aren't uncommon, but they don't have to define the quality of your life. And that's the key takeaway here. While aging comes with its challenges, there are steps we can take, starting now, to manage and even prevent many of them. Common health challenges for seniors and how to overcome them. 1. Mobility issues and joint pain, e.g., arthritis. Many seniors face stiffness, joint pain, or reduced mobility as they age, just like he did in his later years. But movement is medicine. He realized this too late, but you don't have to. Start with light exercises, short walks, chair yoga, or simple stretches. These not only reduce pain, but also improve flexibility and strength. If you're unsure where to start, consider low-impact activities like swimming or Tai Chi, which are easy on the joints while keeping you active. 2. Heart health and hypertension. Heart disease remains one of the leading causes of death for seniors. For him, years of smoking and a sedentary lifestyle contributed to his declining heart health. But here's what's encouraging. Even small lifestyle changes can make a big difference. Eating a heart-healthy diet rich in whole grains, lean proteins, and healthy fats, like the meals his wife used to make, can lower blood pressure and improve heart function. Make it a point to move daily, even if it's just a 10-minute walk after dinner. And remember, it's never too late to make these changes. 3. Respiratory issues, e.g. COPD or lung cancer. For him, smoking played a direct role in his lung cancer diagnosis. If you're a smoker or struggling with similar habits, know this. Quitting now can still save years of your life. It's not just about adding years to your life, it's about adding quality to those years. Seek support from your doctor, loved ones, or even online communities to take that first step toward quitting. 4. Mental health and loneliness. It's not just the body that needs care, the mind does too. Seniors often face feelings of isolation, depression, or anxiety, especially if they lose close friends or family members. His wife was his emotional rock, but not everyone has that support system. If you're feeling lonely or disconnected, reach out. Whether it's joining a community group, volunteering, or even connecting with family more often. Those relationships can do wonders for your mental well-being. 5. Fatigue and energy decline. As we age, it's natural to feel less energetic, but a lot of that can be managed with proper nutrition and hydration. He admitted late in life that he often skipped meals or drank too much coffee instead of water. Don't make that mistake. Drink plenty of water, eat balanced meals, and give your body the fuel it needs to thrive. In his final days, he reflected on how much better he felt, even after just a few weeks of making those healthier choices. "I wish I'd started sooner," he said, with a mix of regret and hope that others might learn from his experience. And that's the beauty of his story. It reminds us that it's never too early or too late to start caring for ourselves. Your health is your foundation. Without it, everything else becomes harder. If you take one thing from his life, let it be this. Don't wait until it's too late to prioritize your well-being. Whether it's quitting a bad habit, taking a walk today, or eating something fresh and nourishing, every little effort adds up. Start now. Your future self will thank you, and so will the people who love you. Lesson 3. Never stop learning. Albert Einstein once said, "Once you stop learning, you start dying." And here's something that might surprise you. Studies show that seniors who actively engage in learning new skills or hobbies have a 30% lower risk of cognitive decline. It's proof that our brains crave growth, no matter our age. This man, the one whose life we're reflecting on, embodied this truth like no one else I've ever met. If there's one thing people always said about him, it was this: he never stopped learning. And I mean never. Even in his 70s, when most people would have been content to sit back and let life slow down, he was challenging himself to do the unexpected. One of my favorite stories about him was when he decided at 69 years old to learn computer programming. Yes, programming. The man who didn't even own a smartphone until his mid-60s suddenly became obsessed with the idea of creating his own app. Everyone thought he was joking at first. His kids laughed, his friends teased him, and even he admitted, "I have no idea what I'm doing, but I'm going to figure it out." And guess what? He did. After months of struggling through online tutorials and countless hours of trial and error, he finally built a basic app that tracked his daily walks. A little personal project that gave him a sense of pride and accomplishment. But it wasn't just programming. Over the years, he learned to speak Spanish because he wanted to communicate with the locals during a trip to Mexico. He picked up watercolor painting after his wife signed them up for an art class together, and he even tried his hand at woodworking to build a bookshelf for his granddaughter. He wasn't always great at these things. Some projects were left unfinished, some paintings were crooked, but that wasn't the point. For him, learning wasn't about perfection. It was about growth. It was about proving to himself that he could still do something new, no matter how old he was. The challenges of learning in old age. Now let's be real, learning something new in your later years isn't easy. He often joked, "My brain's not as fast as it used to be, and my fingers definitely aren't." And he was right. Our ability to pick up new skills does slow down as we age. It can feel frustrating, even intimidating, to start from scratch when you're used to being good at the things you've done for years. But here's the thing he always said: the hardest part isn't learning, it's getting past the fear of looking foolish. And he was right. That fear of not being good enough, or the belief that it's too late to start, is what stops so many of us from trying. But you know what? The moment you let go of that fear, something amazing happens. you discover that you're capable of far more than you thought. Signs it's time to embrace something new. He often said that life has a way of nudging you when it's time to grow, and I think he was onto something. Here are a few signs he believed meant it was time to embrace new things. 1. You feel stuck or bored. If your days start to blend together and you feel like you're on autopilot, that's your cue to try something new. 2. You catch yourself saying, "I can't do that." Whenever he said this, it became his personal challenge to prove himself wrong. 3. You struggle to let go of old ways. He believed that unlearning was just as important as learning. If something isn't serving you anymore, a belief, a routine, even a mindset, it's okay to let it go and make room for something better. For him, these little moments of self-awareness were opportunities, and they can be for you too. How to overcome the fear of learning and unlearning. If you're watching this and thinking, "I don't even know where to start," let me share some of his advice for getting past the fear. 1. Start small. He didn't try to master programming overnight. He started with a single tutorial and built from there. Find one small step you can take toward learning something new. 2. Be patient with yourself. He wasn't afraid to laugh at his mistakes. He often said, "If I didn't mess up, I wouldn't have anything to laugh about." Give yourself grace to learn at your own pace. 3. Find joy in the process. For him, the reward wasn't the finished product. It was the journey of figuring it out. Focus on the joy of discovery, not just the end result. 4. Ask for help. He wasn't afraid to ask his kids to explain something he didn't understand. Whether it's a family member, a friend, or even an online community, don't hesitate to reach out. Growth is timeless. His story reminds us that learning is more than just a skill. It's a mindset. It keeps us curious, engaged, and connected to the world around us. And in the process, it gives us a sense of purpose and accomplishment that no one can take away. So if you've ever told yourself, "I'm too old for that," let this be the moment you change that story. Whether it's picking up a new language, starting a hobby, or just saying yes to something outside your comfort zone, remember this: it's never too late to grow. As he would always say, you don't have to be great to start, but you do have to start to be great. His life is proof that no matter your age, learning can open doors you didn't even know were there. And who knows, maybe the next chapter of your life will be the most exciting one yet. Lesson 4. Find joy in the small things. As the poet William Blake once wrote, "To see a world in a grain of sand and heaven in a wildflower, there is magic in the small, simple moments of life. But how often do we overlook them in the rush of our day-to-day routines?" For him, the man whose story we're exploring today, it wasn't the grand gestures or big achievements that gave his life meaning. It was the little things, the quiet joys that he treasured most. He loved his morning routine, a ritual he never skipped, even on the busiest days. Every morning at exactly 7 a.m., he would sit on his porch with a steaming cup of coffee, watching the world wake up. "It's my time to think," he used to say, smiling. He'd listen to the birds, feel the warmth of the sun on his face, and breathe in the fresh morning air. That simple act of sitting still, of being fully present, was his way of grounding himself before the chaos of the day began. And it wasn't just his mornings. He found joy in so many little things. Watching his granddaughter pick dandelions in the backyard, hearing the sound of rain against the windows, even the smell of freshly baked bread that his wife would make on weekends. These were the moments he held on to, the moments that made him feel alive. He used to say, "Happiness isn't about chasing after big things. It's about noticing the small ones already around you." And he was right. Why finding joy in the small things matters. But here's something we often forget. Finding joy in the small things isn't just about feeling happy in the moment. It's also about cultivating gratitude and mindfulness, which have profound effects on our mental and physical health. Research has shown that practicing gratitude can improve sleep, reduce stress, and even lower blood pressure. And yet, so many of us overlook these simple moments because we're too busy worrying about the next big thing. He wasn't immune to this. In his younger years, he often got caught up in the hustle, working long hours, chasing goals, and constantly planning for the future. "I spent years waiting for the perfect moment to enjoy life," he once admitted. "But life doesn't wait for you. It wasn't until his later years that he truly started to slow down and savor the present. And when he did, everything changed. He became calmer, more content, and more connected to the people around him. How to embrace joy in everyday life. If you're wondering how to find joy in your own life, here's what he taught me through his actions and words. 1. Pause and notice. Take a moment each day to stop and truly look at what's around you. Whether it's the sound of birds, the warmth of your morning tea, or the smile of a loved one, these little moments can bring immense joy if you let them. 2. Practice gratitude. He kept a small notebook by his bed, where he'd write down 3 things he was grateful for every night. Some days it was big things like a visit from his kids. Other days, it was something as simple as the smell of fresh cut grass. Gratitude doesn't have to be grand, it just has to be genuine. 3. Create rituals. Like his morning coffee on the porch, find something small you can do every day that brings you peace or happiness. It doesn't have to be fancy or time-consuming, just something that helps you reconnect with yourself. 4. Be present. He used to say, put the phone down and look up. It was his way of reminding us to be fully present with the people and the world around us. When you're with loved ones, give them your full attention. When you're alone, take time to enjoy your own company. The power of letting go. One of the most profound things he taught me was this. Sometimes, finding joy is about letting go of what doesn't matter. He was a perfectionist for much of his life, constantly worrying about whether things were just right. But in his later years, he realized that chasing perfection often blinds you to the beauty of imperfection. He once told me a story about a project he was working on, a woodworking bench he wanted to build for his grandson. Halfway through, the measurements got a little off, and it didn't turn out the way he envisioned. But instead of scrapping it, he finished it anyway. When his grandson saw it, he didn't notice the flaws. He just loved that his grandpa had made it for him. That was the moment I realized it doesn't have to be perfect to matter, he said. Savor the present. His story is a reminder that joy doesn't come from having more or doing more. It comes from noticing more. Life is full of small, beautiful moments, but we have to slow down long enough to see them. If you're watching this, I want you to take a moment to pause and think. What's one small thing you can appreciate right now? Maybe it's the sound of your child laughing in the next room, the warmth of the sun on your face, or even just the comfort of sitting in your favorite chair. These are the moments that matter. As he would often say, don't wait for happiness to find you. It's already here. You just have to look for it. And when you do, you'll find that the small things are often the big things, after all. Lesson 5. Leave a legacy. What does it mean to leave a legacy? For him, it wasn't about money or material things. It was about the memories he created, the values he passed down, and the way he made people feel. And in the end, it's those things that live on, far beyond our time here. One of the most beautiful parts of his story was how he rekindled his relationship with his kids. There was a time when things weren't perfect between them, years lost to misunderstandings and unspoken feelings. But as he grew older, he realized that no disagreement was worth the distance it created. So he made it his mission to rebuild those bridges. He started small, regular phone calls, showing up for birthdays, and eventually, Sunday dinners at his house where his entire family would gather around the table. Those moments didn't just heal their relationship, they became traditions. His kids saw the effort he put into family, and now they're carrying that same value forward with their own children. That's his legacy. Not just the love he shared, but the love he inspired them to pass on. It's proof that even if you've made mistakes, it's never too late to rewrite your story and leave something meaningful behind. But his legacy didn't stop at his family. He and his wife were the kind of people who looked out for their community. They were known for hosting little gatherings, sometimes for the kids in the neighborhood, other times for their friends and neighbors in their age group. They'd set up tables in the backyard, cook up a storm, and turn their home into a place where everyone felt welcome. They didn't have much, but they gave what they could: their time, their kindness, and a sense of belonging that so many people appreciated. One neighbor told me a story about how, after her husband passed away, she felt completely lost. But then, one evening, she found herself at their backyard party, sitting with people who made her feel seen and supported. That's what they did. They created moments that reminded people they weren't alone. What will your legacy be? He taught us that leaving a legacy doesn't have to be grand or complicated. It's about the small, consistent acts of kindness and love that ripple out into the world. It's about showing up for your family, being there for your neighbors, and creating memories that live on long after you're gone. So ask yourself, what kind of legacy do you want to leave? How do you want people to remember you? Maybe it's the values you pass down to your children, the kindness you show to a stranger, or the traditions you create with your family. Whatever it is, remember this. Your legacy isn't just what you leave behind. It's what you build every single day. As he often said, people won't remember the things you owned, but they'll never forget the way you made them feel. And if you live with that in mind, you'll leave behind something truly priceless. All right, so let's quickly recap the 5 lessons from this incredible life. First, cherish time with your loved ones, because let's face it, those Sunday dinners and random phone calls will mean way more than any promotion or paycheck. Second, remember that health is wealth. Seriously, if you're still debating whether to quit smoking or start taking those morning walks, consider this your sign. Third, never stop learning. If a 69-year-old man can teach himself programming, what's stopping you from picking up a new skill? Fourth, find joy in the small things. It's amazing how a good cup of coffee or a simple sunrise can completely shift your day. And finally, leave a legacy. Not in a build a statue in your name kind of way, but in how you show up for your family, friends, and even strangers. Now let me ask you this. Which one of these lessons spoke to you the most? And more importantly, how are you going to apply it to your life? Because here's the thing. Wisdom is great, but it doesn't mean much if you don't act on it. As the self-proclaimed professor of wisdom, let me give you one last piece of advice. Life is short, but it's also full of opportunities to make it meaningful. The question is, what are you going to do with the time you have left? Are you going to wait for the perfect moment? Or are you going to start now? Imperfect, messy, but real. I'll leave you with this thought. Someone once said, we don't remember days, we remember moments. So make those moments count. Start that project, call that person, take that trip. And if all else fails, at least make sure you enjoy a good cup of coffee tomorrow morning. It's what he would have done. If this video resonated with you, let me know in the comments which lesson you'll be carrying with you. And hey, if you found this helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and maybe even share it with someone who could use a little wisdom today. Until next time, I'm your friendly wisdom professor, signing off. Live fully, love deeply, and don't forget to laugh along the way.